So welcome David Gallagher and Ryan Gavalier today.
That's somebody honking down the gosh darn highway. That's old Jordan in there.
Are you already honking down the highway? For God's sakes. Hey, this is Grant with Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today we have a great episode. We are going to look at the Beach Boys album, Love You, from 1977. This album was released April 11th of 1977 and was recorded over a long period of time. The Beach Boys finished it up October 76 to January of 77. Originally, this was recorded at Brothers Studios and then Beach Boys Studios in Los Angeles. This started out as a Brian Wilson solo album. It ended up being a Beach Boys record, but Brian pretty much plays all the keyboards, synthesizers, and drums on here. This was actually the first time Brian was actually given control since the Smile Sessions in 1967. Rolling Stone Record Guide gave this record a 4-star review back in the day. This is the whole Brian's back period. So let's get started. So I'd like to welcome David Gallagher and Ryan Gavalier today to my panel. So like I said, today we're going to discuss Beach Boys' Love You, 1977, and we're going to start out with Davy first, and then Ryan, and we'll go to me. So Davy, why don't you go ahead and we'll just do a general discussion and, give a ranking. It can be, 1 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 or, any of those. So Davy, why don't you take it from here?
Well, it's not going to be a 1 out of 5, let's put it that way. So Beach Boys, one of my top 5 bands of all time. Adore the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson, genius level. Seen him multiple times. Seen him do Pet Sounds in its entirety, Smile in its entirety, and then just a kind of great titsy thing. Adore most of the Beach Boys catalogue pre-1980.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Little patchy thereafter, very patchy thereafter. You saw on one of your shows last couple of weeks, Brian, I've got all the solo records, even Mike bloody loves solo records, so Beach Boys, my jam. But in the 2000s, when they started releasing these twofers, this was just manna from God to get these albums so dirt cheap. 2 albums for £5. I mean, it's, what's that, $7-8? A joke. So it was great to discover so many of these hard to find on CD at the time, because there was that period where you could only get your Pet Sounds and your, those kind of ones.
Well, this is the epic version of it before the twofers came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which they're so short that it feels almost an insult having to buy those albums for 25 minutes worth of music. Sometimes they're practically EPs, some of them.
Right.
Some of them should be EPs actually, but so to put in context, then 1977, Love You comes out, but we've just left 1976, which is the big comeback year for Brian. We've got the massive Brian is Back campaign. We've got the bicentennial celebrations where the Beach Boys had a big comeback, which pushed the 15 big ones way up the charts. But it was so unambitious. It was full of rock and roll covers. It didn't feel like it had a creative voice. Everybody was pulling in different directions. So it kind of flopped, although it did well the first couple of weeks after the summer died down. Everybody went, yeah, maybe not. So the idea was, let's give Brian control again, see if he can do, Pet Sounds too. And Brian was convincing people that he could come up with Pet Sounds too. And his attempt was initially supposed to be the solo album, Brian Loves You, but came out as the Beach Boys Love You, which at the time was just maligned as, what the hell is this? Or... what the hell? This is great. You were either in one camp or the other. I don't think there were many people going, yeah, it's okay. Apart from a little bit inside too that we can come to that I think everybody agreed was pretty top notch.
Well, I will say this, Davey, is that when this came out, it in the States, it did not sell at all. But I do know, like in the UK, that the Beach Boys sold way more over there.
Yeah.
But I know back in the day when this came out, this ended up in the cutout bins.
Yeah.
But it might have fared better over there. I don't know.
Brian's always been a massive name over here. Him and Paul McCartney obviously had the rivalry in the 60s, but Brian's always, his tours here are pretty much longer than they are in America usually, because he can just sell out on demand, no problem whatsoever. But should we go into the album itself now, or do you want to do a round robin of our first thoughts?
Nah, go ahead. You do it.
So, I mean, we've got, what we've got, is it 14 tracks? The way it's laid out on the two is 16. Was it 14 or 15? Well, never mind. We've got over a dozen tracks. But what I love about it is that they're all snippets, and it feels like fragments of Brian's mind at the time. Which, if you know anything about Brian's personal life in 1976, when this was recorded, late 76, it's a fascinating insight. It's more autobiographical than just any Beach Boys stuff since the 60s. So we kick off with Let Us Go On This Way. And that sounds very like Walk the Line from Brian's first solo album in 1988, with the very heavy deep synths. There's a lot of Mini Moog all over this album. It's very much like Wendy Carlos's classical albums that she was doing Mini Moog versions, or he at the time she transitioned. When they really cut out those parts and then hit into the choruses and you get the harmonies for the God Let Us Go On This Way, it's just like, oh wow, the Beach Boys are back. It's wow. Mike comes in for that middle eight part. I'm not sure I need that part. It's just such a lovely opener anyway, and rocking as hell when Carl just rocks out. I love Carl doing that stuff. He's often considered the ballad guy, but I love Carl rocking out as well. I mean, it starts with him just going like, hey, this big loud shout, which I love. Then you get Roller Skating Child, which some people think is creepy, but again, it's Brian Wilson. He's got that childlike mentality. It's so infectious. There's some lovely guitar licks, and there's that great ending to it where it just goes 1, 2, 3, and then Brian just shouts, "Oh, let's get in chat!" It's just full of those weird little moments that you would just never put into any other songs, and you certainly didn't get in an album as safe as 15 Big Ones, not one before, which was just impossibly safe with Let's Do Blueberry Hill. I mean, I love That's Domino, but when you've got Brian Wilson, you don't need to do that. Then we come to one of my favourite quadruple headers on just about any album. I adore this whole section we're coming to here. Mona, Dennis Wilson. Oh, it's only 4 chords. Dennis is having a blast, and I love the real simplicity of the song. It's very primitive 50s, early 60s. I mean, it literally calls Phil Spector out. Listen to the do-run. No, you're gonna love Phil. We don't love Phil Spector anymore, of course. After.
No, you can't now. He's actually no, and he's dead too. So
look, for Be My Baby, he gets a pass. All right, that's fine.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah, that Christmas album should be you get 1 free murder if you ask me. But Dennis is great on this kind of track because it's such a. If you had Carl or Brian or Mike or Al singing it, it would be a little bit primitive, but Dennis's kind of throaty voice gives it that kind of, not sarcastic, but it's like, we know this is a little bit old-fashioned even for the time.
Well, we're lucky that Dennis was able to deliver the vocal.
Yes, I mean, Dennis was having a great period at that time, production-wise, but it was also having a bad period personal-wise, which unfortunately he's one of those guys who the worse his personal life got, the better his own music became, as we see with so many artists. But then we get into the masterpiece, possibly the greatest song ever written, Johnny Carson. Johnny hated it.
Wait, whoa, David. Did you just say that one of the best songs ever written?
Yes, it did, yeah, because
I just wanted to make sure I heard that. I
could listen to this song on repeat all day, and do you know how I know I could? Because I did today. It's an absolutely infectious song. It's more infectious than The Flu. It's absolutely fantastic. Johnny hated it. Johnny thought it was sarcastic and they were ripping the piss out of him, which you can hear. If you want to hear that, you can absolutely hear it. Mike sings a lot of the lead on this, and you know my feelings on Mike. He's not my favourite, but I think he's brilliant on this because he does lend that kind of. I'm a real singing about Johnny Carson here. So he speaks in such a manly tone. You know, you get that kind of like he's not really there feel, but it's so sincere. When you know it's Brian that comes up with it, it's so sincere. Brian literally would just stay up all night and watch TV. So this was a legit ode to his favourite TV show host.
Well, like this is a snapshot of what Brian's life was about. This is what this album is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a look into his psyche. That's why it's such a great album. There's more sincerity on one track on this than in the whole of the album that preceded it. The absolute whole. I mean, even the Johnny Carson track, it would be so easy to just have the parts where they're singing back and forth just be, don't you think he's such a... We'll just have one person singing that, but they just have odd syllable. Don't you think he's such a natural guy? You know, the way he's kept it up good. You know, it's fantastic. It's so original. It's so offbeat. It's so quirky. You can hear where indie bands would get that kind of quirk pop later on. I mean, if they might be Giants did this in the 90s, people would be all over it if they made Johnny Carson.
They might be Giants. There you go.
I mean, if they made this 20 years later, people would love it.
But if you think about this, though, think of this. There was nothing, to a certain degree, this is very cutting edge because there's really nothing else like this out at the time.
No. I mean, synths had come in, but nobody was as synth heavy because it was all he was using on these mini moves as Brian. I mean, he was, especially on the opener, some of those open chords on it are just so heavy. It's fantastic. The Al Jardine parts on Johnny Carson where we get to the Ed McMahon comes up. I love that part too. I love that so much, and you can imagine them hearing it in the was it NBC he was on. You can imagine that coming and them saying, "Look, they're ripping the piss out of us." And Mike probably was, because you know Mike was never a fan of out there lyrics. You know, he's not hidden his tastes about that over the years, but it's painfully sincere. That's what I love about Brian. He's never sarcastic. So yeah, he's innocent. Good time. Starts by the heroes and villains with the almost Western feel, and it's very fitting because this track's directly from 1970, which is why Brian sounds a lot better on it. Well, better being subjective, sorry, but it's very country. It feels very Al. The Feel Flows box set, if anybody picked that up last year, has got a version that includes this segueing into "You Never Give Me Your Money" by the Beatles, which is really fantastic. And it was Brian's. What were they called? The Honeys? Is that what they were called?
The Honeys.
Yeah, they originally did this when they became the Springs. And
actually, not to interrupt, but if you can pick up those, either the Honey CD that was on the Capitol, they reintroduced those with like the Dean Martin and all that stuff back in, gosh, what was it? Early 90s probably?
Yeah, it was about the time.
If you can find the Honey CD, it's well worth picking up. And the Spring CD, I think that came out on Rhino, maybe? Yeah. Both of those are phenomenal.
Because like Jan and Dean stuff, some of it's just, but Brian's all over them. So, when, you get Brian stuff. I mean, this is literally a track that Brian said, well, they didn't have a hit with it, so I'm taking it back. Joink. So Brian is literally 7 years younger than he is on the album, which kind of, I'd imagine, confused a lot of people at the time, wondering why Brian suddenly sounds like 1970 again. To
be quite honest, I almost thought it was Al Jardine singing it.
Al does sing the choruses,
right?
That's Al. Al, to me, should always be doing the country-like stuff, the more country rock stuff.
Yeah.
Like that version of Cotton Fields, the single version. I love
Of
it.
2020, what a great record.
Oh,
We'll hit 2020 eventually, kids.
actually, I prefer the singles version, which is different. That's the one that fades in, rather than the 2020 version. But that's like, what do you prefer? Chocolate ice cream or 2 scoops of chocolate ice cream?
Yeah.
Honking down the gosh darn highway. Again, it starts with that boom, massive drum sound. And I love that again. I did say again on your video recently. I always consider a really underrated member of the Beach Boys vocally. He finds
Oh,
ways
yeah.
to make these lines interesting that aren't there always in the songs. So honking down the gosh darn highway becomes honking down the gosh darn highway. Highway. He finds
Yeah.
these. How can I twist this? Yeah, big fan of ours. Postcards from California album from 2010. Highly recommended. Neil Young's on it. Brian's on it. And Mike's not. So, yeah, it's a terrific, odd track. Brian he's one of the only songwriters that could get away with a line like honking down the gosh darn highway and not have it come off as cheesy.
Well,
Anyone else, I think Brian's got that innocence where there's a part of him that's never really left Burbank. Is still part of him is still in the household of Muddy Wilson and his brothers, and he's never left that.
yeah.
So
I would agree with that, yeah.
I think that's how you can kind of, again, you have to kind of remind yourself of that, because you're right. If you just listen to it as a record, you probably would go, "That's cheesy." But again, we're not. We're listening to it as Beach Boys and Brian fans. So,
Right.
yeah. Ding Dang. One of Brian's favourite songs, apparently. He said it's one of the best things he ever wrote, despite it being 56 seconds long. And it's just a little rave up, isn't it? It's just a little party track. And Roger McGuinn's got songwriting credit on it, even though there's only one line.
I'm not sure what Roger did on that, but...
Well, he wrote it in 1970 with Brian. Wrote it. They just recorded a drunken session. I mean, that must be the easiest royalty check Roger's ever cashed. But yeah, Roger's got a bit of a history with that, though, because Ballad of Easy Rider, Dylan wrote the lyrics for that on a napkin and gave them to Roger and just said, "Here, do what you want with it." So yeah, Roger loves an easy cash.
Oh, yeah.
I love Roger McGuinn, though, so I'm a big Birds fan as well. So, anyway, Solar System. So we're on to side 2, aren't we, with Solar System, if I remember right? Again, I've got the CD here, but I think Solar System starts as in side 2. Yeah. It sounds a bit like later Brian solo stuff. I don't know how familiar you guys are with his later stuff.
Yep.
But it sounds like Lucky Old Sun to me. It sounds like that album, which is brilliant. It's one of my absolute favourite summer records. It's very, very Brian in terms of, again, nobody else would come up with this quirky sincerity for these kind of lyrics that you think, this should be temp lyrics, and it would be for anyone else. If Mars had life on it, I may find my wife on it. What? But it's Brian Molson, so you buy into this. Brian just finds these quirky sincerities that nobody else could really get away with, and it's got a gorgeous melody. And one thing I do love about it, it's got the fire bell, that noise. Is it just called the fire bell? Was that the name of those things? The fire station bell.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, it sounds about
fire
right.
Alarm. That's what we call it in the States.
Yeah, but the actual bell rather than the electrical alarm. That reminded me of from Smile, Mrs. O'Leary's.
The fire sessions.
Yeah, it's from Mrs. O'Leary's Cow from that. So it's exactly, just triggered that, and it was great. Then we come into what I like to call the Pet Sounds reminiscence week. When Brian said that he was trying to recreate Pet Sounds, I think this is the 3 bits where you can actually hear that.
Yeah, all on side 2. That's where it is.
So not Solar System. That's not 2 Pet Sounds.
No.
Well, maybe it's the Sloop John B of
that would be the Sloop John B track on this side.
I love Sloop John B, but it's out of place compared to like.
It is. Yeah.
So you get The Night Was Young with kind of lovely steel guitar. Again, Carl, oh, nobody sings a love song like Carl. As much as I said I love his rockers when he does get to go on them. Again, it could be on Pet Sounds thematically. It's a bit more smile musically than Pet Sounds. I'd say it would fit onto that more than actual Pet Sounds.
Well, I think the whole record sounds more smiley smile than Pet Sounds.
Yeah, Brian disagreed. To this day, Brian says that this should be the second thing you listen to after Pet Sounds. I don't know about that. I think this should be.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I think this should be the treasure that you find later on. I think this should
Yep.
be the little reward that you find. Digging in the dirt through the stuff. It fades out a little bit too soon. The Night Was So Young, because it's only 2 minutes and 15 seconds or something. I could use another 3 minutes of that, but I can almost always say that when Carl's singing. I'll Bet He's Nice is great because you get to hear all three brothers for a change. And Denny and Carl were so supportive of Brian through this project. They'd kind of drifted apart in the last year or two, but then they really came together again and almost ousted Mike from the whole. And you can hear it. You can really
there's
hear it.
very little Mike on here. I'm just saying. Yeah.
You really hear it. That this was, of course, again a Brian Wilson solo record, but you can hear that he was not writing for Mike, was he? He was writing for him and his brothers. So it's great to hear them together, even if Dennis and Brian have got very different voices to what they did a few years earlier. More ragged, but then Carl comes in and just throws them together. They finish each other's sentences. It's very brother-like. I mean, the Chrysler record label was even Brother Records, wasn't it? So it's a lovely little family piece, and there's a great mournful feel to it. It's just beautiful. Carl Wilson makes me cry. He's one of the few singers that can make me cry. Really just gorgeous voice. Let's Put Our Hearts Together, where you get Marilyn Wilson on vocals as well. That's kind of funny because here he is singing with his wife when The Night Was So Young was written about his mistress. So within 3 tracks...
Brian was a player.
Yeah, within 3 tracks, you've got his booty call and you've got his actual wife. But it's cool to have Brian singing with a female singer. Again, to go back to Lucky Old Son, on the bonus tracks of that, Carole King does Good Kind of Love, which is one of my favourite tracks. Like, she's got the good kind. So I love Brian with a female voice. It doesn't happen as often as I should like. I want to pick you up. Okay. Pat her on the butt. Again, this is a track a bit like Roller Skating Child that has come in for criticism over the years for being creepy. Brian says that it's written about wanting to. Why am I looking to be polite? That's not like me. I think it's because it's Brian. I don't want to be my usual over-the-top nasty self when I'm talking about a Brian Wilson record because I love it so much.
We got the filtered Davy today.
Yeah, because Brian does that to me. I'm not joking. It really makes me feel more innocent, and that's some doing. As long as the courts find me innocent, that's the main thing, though. But Brian's thesis on this is that he wrote it about kind of a sexual relationship where you objectify the person you're with and want to treat them like a kid. A little bit weird. But again, it's Brian. I'm not going to defend this one as much as some of the other ones on this because it's...
But it does have a great Dennis vocal.
Yes, it does.
I'll give it that.
But then...
It's a very well-written song, even though it's a little weird.
Yeah, and the Dennis vocal is interesting because, as we know, Dennis shacked up with Mike Love's love child. So for Dennis to sing about a younger, well, you can all put that together, folks. But yeah, I mean, it's still got that very childlike quality if you look at it from that point of view. But again, you need to know Brian's story to do that. So again, this is why I think Brian's wrong. That you do need to know Brian to know this album. It will help you know him better, I think. But you do need some familiarity with the story. It helps so much.
Yeah.
Airplane, it's as close to filler, I think, as this album gets. I just think, this seems like it could have come off of just about any old Beach Boys album when they were looking for a track to fill in. And again, Mike comes in here, and I go, "Oh, that's right, Mike's in the band at this point." He just pops in. But again, Carl blows him out of the water when he comes in. Nothing to commend it, but I love the last 30 seconds where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it just turns into a rock and roll song. I can't wait, to see her face. I can't wait to see her for no reason, and then that just stops. Is again, I could use that as a solo track and cut out the airplane track. Just give me that rock and roll track and cut out the airplane nonsense. The Kinks did that better. The Kinks did that much better with This Time Tomorrow. Love Is a Woman. It is a bit of a party song to the end, a bit of the end of a party, if you will, with the flutes and some saxes, but nobody's playing really hard. It's almost laid back. It's quite a fun track, but it feels, again, a bit scuzzy, a bit, but also like something that could have been on Beach Boys Party, but at the end of the album when they're burnt out and you just, So, I mean, all over, I think this album is just full of absolute little gems, strange quirkiness, real sincerity that can often be misconstrued as oddness or weirdness for the sake of it. But I think that is just a fundamental misunderstanding of who Brian Wilson was and is. And it's when you start to read about Brian, when you start to listen to solo works, especially, as I said, Lucky Old Son, maybe even watch the documentary about Smile, which is essential viewing for a Beach Boys fan. And then even his other interests, like his covers albums with, Disney songs, and, that shows his childlike innocence.
Mm-hmm.
The Gershwin album, where that shows his musical influence. So there's no one Brian Wilson, and I think this is the album where you get to have a little taste of everything. It's the hors d'oeuvre Brian Wilson album. And it may be too strange for some people, but for those people, I would just say, well, start with this then and work your way through the acknowledged classics. Do your Wild Honeys and your Summer Days and your Tonight.
Stick with the Capitol stuff first and then branch out.
Or the very early Brother stuff, 2020, Sunflower, those kind of stuff. But then go past the early to mid-70s. And be prepared to not like some of it, because as we discussed, I'm not going to go back for the Beach Boys anytime, they're self-titled from the 80s or...
oh, no. God, no.
Paradise. I'm not going to do that anytime soon. But, yeah, look, I know I've rambled, but this album is just such an absolute favourite of mine. Always has been. I mean, even the cover, I love that it's a tapestry. I mean, that sums it up perfectly for me.
Dean Torrance artwork.
Yes, it is, from Jan and Dean. Because it's a tapestry of Brian's psyche at the time. That's how I've always looked at it, and for me, that's the perfect illustration of that, literally and figuratively. So there you go. See, I can review stuff without being rude and making jokes. There you go.
No, you're good. Mm-hmm. You're a professional, for crying out loud. So, if you were going to rate this record, I'm going to figure you're going to give it a 5 out of 5 or a 10 out of 10. What would you rate it?
I can. As much as we joked, I was going to give it a 10 out of 10. I can't say the Airplane is filler, and I can't say that I'm not a massive fan of I Want to Pick You Up, and then say 10 out of 10. But coming from it.
Shit, the cops are coming.
It's all right.
You better duck.
They've tried before. They'll try again. I think if I had to rate this, I would give this 9 honks down the highway out of 10.
Okay. That's fair. That's a fair. And David, that's a great review. I don't really have anything to argue with there. But I think I Want to Pick You Up is a great track. I think it's one of the best tracks on here.
It's one of Brian's favorite songs that he's written.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's pop over to Ryan and see what Ryan has to say. Ryan, what's your take on this record?
I love this album.
Okay.
is an amazing album. I think it's in my top 5 Beach Boys albums.
Oh, goodness.
Yep.
Maybe even top 3, honestly.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
Is it quite as good as Pet Sounds? No.
No.
I like it about equally with Smiley Smile, though.
That I could agree with.
And Smiley Smile is my number 2, so it's like right up in there. It's probably my number 3 favorite Beach Boys album. I think it's better than anything that came out before Pet Sounds. And I think it's better than anything that came out after Smiley Smile.
Wow. Better, not, whoa.
Better
Amazing.
than anything that came before Pet Sounds.
I love that. The two just before Pet Sounds, the Tonight and Summer Days and stuff.
Better than Summer Days and Summer Nights and Beach Boys Today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beach Boys Today is a classic.
But again,
I love them all. I'm a huge
I think we should be fair to Ryan here, because again, I heard those albums for the first time on a twofer, so I had Today and Summer Days on a one album set. So
Yeah.
it seemed like an explosion of wonderfulness. So taken as an individual part, there was a little bit of filler on both of those albums. So I think Ryan's got more than enough ground room to stand on there with his fitness.
All right, Ryan, keep going. Sorry, I'm just giving you some shit.
Yeah, I mean, I love pretty much all the Beach Boys albums up to this point. There's some that I like more than others.
Yeah.
But I think there's a ton of brilliant stuff out there. I mean, they're the American Beatles. You know, I love them to death. I mean, half the time I'd rather listen to them than the Beatles, but like, I don't know but that's a whole other conversation. Let's just talk about this album. So it's widely known as like the Beach Boys punk rock album, not necessarily because it sounds like punk rock, but because of the short songs, the lyrical content, being kind of adolescent and stuff a lot of the time. And it's also known for its heavy use of the synthesizers, which was kind of new for the time, especially on an album like this. And I guess what I really love about this album is especially the lyrics. It's just so much fun. I mean, you know, you have a song like Johnny Carson where they're just worshiping Johnny Carson, and it's so funny, but at the same time it's so endearing. And in the background you have this really like psychedelic, almost kind of dark music as they're just worshiping this guy. It's like so strange. And you know, you have Honking Down the Highway where seems like he's kind of having like road rage as he's trying to get to his girl. That's what the song feels like to me. That's just so funny to me. You know, Let Us Go On This Way is such an awesome opener, especially with those synthesizers.
Yeah,
it's so
heavy. So heavy.
Right off the bat, you know this is like nothing you've ever heard by the Beach Boys before. I mean, you have the harmonies. The actual songwriting is it's been heard before with the Beach Boys, but the sound of this album, the drum sound is so good on this album. It just pounds. It's maybe not the most technically great drum sound, but it's so memorable. And the synths sound great. Yeah, especially on some of the ballads, the keyboards sound so good. They're like lush. They create so much atmosphere. And everybody's on top of their game vocally. I mean, you know, opening track, you have Carl Wilson and Mike Love singing together, and they do a great job on it. Roller Skating Child is a song that Brian says is about his daughters. And I think it's a really catchy song. It has a fun little groove to it. It's just a lot of fun. I mean, is it the greatest song ever written? No, but it's an awesome Beach Boys track. Mona I love because it does sound just like a Phil Spector song, and I love Phil Spector. I don't care what he did in his personal life. He's one of the most influential people in music ever, and he was a genius. So this song sounds like you're kind of like Ronettes, like Be My Baby, something like that. It's just a really great love song. I mean, I love that style of music, that like 50s love song kind of stuff. I'm a sucker for it when I hear those chord progressions, those melodies, those harmonies, and this song nails it. And Dennis gives a great lead vocal performance on that one. Like I said, I love Johnny Carson. It's one of my favorites on this album. It's one of the most intriguing Beach Boys songs.
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
So
like it's almost Uncanny Valley, but you just have to love it because it's so genuine and endearing. Good time, pretty cool song with a really good Brian Wilson lead vocal performance there. Honking Down the Highway I love. It's such a catchy song. It's kind of goofy, like the whole gosh darn highway type stuff. Highway.
Hey, I tell you what, Led Zepp should have done that for Highway, for Stairway to Heaven. Stairway, that would be great.
Could you imagine?
Honking down the gosh darn stairway.
Yeah, it's just such a catchy song. It's great chord progressions once again, great melody, great harmonies. It's just awesome. And Al gives a great lead vocal performance. Ding Dang is definitely one of my favorites on here. Even though it is 56 seconds, it's just fun. You have people shouting left and right, making weird vocal effects and stuff. Definitely sounds like a song where a lot of drugs were consumed in the making.
Well, probably a lot of coke. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just so much fun. And it's short too. And Mike does the lead vocal, and as Davy said, Roger McGuinn helped write that one with Brian in the early 70s. I really like Solar System because it's super psychedelic, especially as it goes on. The keys, the synths get even more heavy and stuff, and they're just talking about like the stars and all the planets and stuff. It's another really weird track. It's kind of like a tamer version of Wind Chimes. It's not nearly as psychedelic, but it kind of gets me in that kind of trance type of feeling, just like that song. And Wind Chimes is one of my favorite Beach Boys tracks. So yeah, I really like that one a lot. The Night Was So Young is a beautiful ballad with Carl singing, and I love the chorus on it. It's a pretty psychedelic chorus, which is such a great song. Great synths on it. Carl's vocals on it are beautiful as always. I mean, he's always one of those singers who can get me pretty emotional too. So whenever I hear him on a ballad like this, it's great. I'll Bet He's Nice is a weird track, but I really like it a lot. It's super cool. And Let's Put Our Hearts Together is another beautiful song, and then Marilyn's on there as well. Love it. I do really like I Want to Pick You Up. I think it's a really catchy song. It's kind of beautiful too. I mean, it's just a really well-written, well-composed song. Maybe it's a little creepy, but it's just a great song. I actually like Airplane. I think it's another beautiful type of song. The end is kind of weird with the rock and roll type of thing, but I do dig it a lot. And then Love Is a Woman. I was just singing that at work today because I was listening to this
God.
this morning, and I was just, Love is a woman. Just,
God.
It got so stuck in my head. But it's a really beautiful song as well. I mean, great keys once again, great vocal harmonies. It's just awesome song. And I think everything on this album is great. I don't think there's a weak moment on it. No filler at all. I mean, I think this is really... I like the Beach Boys when they're experimenting more. And this is one of the most experimental albums you get from them. It's super weird. It was ahead of its time. The songs are top notch. The lyrics are top notch. It definitely does feel like a very Brian album. I mean, because he wrote basically everything on here. And it feels very personal to him as well. You get that awesome Brian touch to it, which is enough for me to love the album, because Brian Wilson really can't do me wrong. He's a genius, you know. I mean, I don't know. I really have no complaints about this album at all. I think it's funny, it's fun, it's psychedelic, it's energetic, it's beautiful at times, and it's definitely my number 3 Beach Boys album. I mean, I remember when I first heard this album, I was like, what in the hell is this? But it blew me away, and I started listening to it more and more, and every time I listen to it, I like it more. I do think it's a masterpiece. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 today, just because Pet Sounds is a 10 out of 10. And this isn't quite as good as Pet Sounds. But I would also give it 9 out of 10. It's
So like maybe a 4 out of 5?
No, 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, it's definitely not an 8 out of 10. It's better than that. I mean, this is an album I could go back to over and over again and still have a ton of fun with it. And I mean, I love so many of their albums, but this is one of the ones that I'll go back to the most. You know, along with like Friends and Pet Sounds and Smiley Smile, 2020.
Wild Honey.
I love Wild Honey. That was the first Beach Boys album I fell in love with.
Yeah, Wild Honey for me.
Wild Honey still stands up. I'll give it that.
Wild Honey is, to me, Carl's album. That's the one where Carl really says, "I'm the singer in the Beach Boys." With his great soul vocal.
Yeah, but did you ever hear all like the Sea of Tunes box set or anything like that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, Brian's still running the show. People that think that Brian stepped back,
no,
that's all a fallacy. He's still running the show.
But there is this misconception that Brian Wilson retired or something after Smell. I don't know where it comes from.
I don't know where it comes from either.
Yeah, Brian disappeared after Smile, and then he came back for the Brian Is Back stuff. That's only true of the live stuff, not of the albums at all. Brian's
right. He's still running the show.
Was he running it as much? No. Was he putting as much effort in? No, for the early 70s. But that's also because Dennis was starting to come into his own. Carl was starting to come into his own. Mike was doing his best. So, you know, there was other people to share the load around. We know Brian Wilson had his problems at that point. So, you know,
right.
It wasn't fair for them to expect Brian to. Plus, at that point, it's easy for us to say in 2022, oh, of course you'd give Brian Wilson full control. But at the time, Warner's hated Brian Wilson. Capitol hated Brian Wilson because Pet Sounds was a massive, massive flop for them. They were having to give that away with the copies of the Greatest Hits album. Brian Wilson was not writing commercial music for them at all. They wanted Mike Love's brand of babes, cars, beaches. That's what they wanted. They didn't want the experimental stuff. And that's why Do It Again was the comeback hit in '69, you know, which I think is a great single, but it is very much
a great single, yeah.
But it is very much we better do something very Beach Boys, you know, make them remember that we're into surfing and babes and cars. It kind of says, right, we're not going to experiment too much anymore, which was the case for a few years, unfortunately. But this just takes you right back to that. Straight back to the experimental Brian, do what the hell you want, but it's the first time, and to this day, it's really the last time, if you think about it, that Brian's ever done that.
Yeah.
Because in his solo stuff, first of all, he had that prick Dr. Landy controlling the first two albums. He did that great album with Van Dyke Parks, Orange Crate Art. And then he did all those albums that I mentioned, are with what they call the Wondermints. Great band, but they do a lot of the stuff with Brian, so it's a collaborative process. So this is the last time that Brian, from start to finish, was the guy saying, "This is how it sounds. This is the lyrics. This is the music." Everything was Brian. I mean, don't get me wrong. A couple of lyrics here and there were Mike, I think, and Al. And also whatever Roger contributed to that 56 seconds. But it's the last time that Brian would really be the creative solo force. And again, it didn't do well. So what happened with the Beach Boys after this? Surfing, Babes.
MIU album.
Well, the Mike doing his what do you call it? Transcendental meditation crap, and then you've got the LA, but then by the 80s, it's all over, man. I mean, they just go straight back to. Well, it's for another.
Well, this was the last interesting record. Let's say that.
For the whole band, yeah, for the whole band.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at stuff like with how much this album influenced people too. I mean, this is Peter Buck from REM, his favorite Beach Boys record.
Mm-hmm.
I know artists like Patti Smith, she spoke very highly of this record. It was influential with a bunch of synth pop musicians and stuff. This is Brian's favorite Beach Boys record. You know, this is a very, very well-regarded album in the music circle. I know it's polarizing to some, but with a lot of people, this was a very influential one. And I just wanted to ask you guys too, real quick, because you were talking about the misconception of Brian kind of falling off completely.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see that movie, Love and Mercy?
Yeah, I love it to death.
I don't think I saw it.
It was the one with John Cusack playing Brian Wilson.
Oh, I couldn't sit through it, no.
Well, John Cusack doesn't look like Brian Wilson, but it's a great performance. And Paul Dano is brilliant as the young Brian Wilson.
So anyway, what about that movie, though, Ryan?
I feel like that movie made it look very much like he completely fell off the face of the earth for a little while.
Yeah, and that's not true at all.
The movie was set at two specific times, though. It didn't do which I liked, because I hate those movies where it does this happened, then this happened, then this happened, like the Freddie Mercury one. I prefer it when they just take a small period of time and tell you one story from that person. So it was Brian trying to shake off Dr. Landy versus Brian coming up with Pet Sounds and Smile. So, I think the narrative goes beyond that, though, and I think Brian's also embraced that narrative that he fell off, because it made Smile his own version of Smile, the 2004 one, which I also think is genius, completely regardless of the Beach Boys 2011.
Oh, it's genius.
Yeah,
it's genius.
I love that 2004 version. I think that helped the publicity for that, if you kind of pretend that was some massive comeback for Brian. So I think Brian was also able to use the, it's been 20 years since you've really heard me, rather than just say, yeah, I was on the last album, So I think he's used it to his advantage as well.
Yeah, great movie, though. It was a very, very good movie.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask that real quick. But yeah, I love this album. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. One of the Beach Boys' best.
Yeah, I'll go top 3 with it, no problem.
Cool.
And we've got a very similar number 2, but I think you can guess what my 2 is. Very close to your 2. But not quite smiley, but just smile.
Well, I think this is a great follow-up to Smiley Smile. I think when they completed this record, of course, Brian was working with Dr. Landy on this, propped him up, Yeah, I know Brian dropped out for a while, but he didn't drop out. It took him a while for him to drop out of the whole scene with the Beach Boys, you know what I mean? Because if you listen to a lot of those bootlegs and a lot of those Capitol releases that they put out, a lot of them you can just only stream them or buy them from Apple Music. He was still running the show all through that Capitol stuff, and probably through Sunflower, and Surf's Up to some degree, I think. Probably Holland's where he dropped out, I think. I mean, they made him go over there, and I don't think he wanted to go. You know the whole thing. But I look at Beach Boys Love You as that the Beach Boys, they really needed a hit at this point. I mean, they are on reprise. Their records aren't selling. And they needed this whole campaign to get Brian back out there to get a hit. Now, was Brian all into this? I don't know. Brian can say, oh, this is my favorite stuff. Brian would pretty much say anything you wanted him to say. I think the music on this is fine. I think Brian should not be writing lyrics. There's a reason that he hired Van Dyke Parks. There's a reason he hired Tony Asher. There's a reason why Mike Love wrote all the lyrics. Brian shouldn't be writing lyrics. I think if we had someone who could write lyrics on this record, it would even take it up higher. Because a lot of these... don't shake your head.
Mike Love, for fuck's sake.
Mike Love would be perfect.
No, right. Mike Love can only write about what I said. Surfing, girls, cars. That's all Mike Love can do. And then that brief period where he thought he was the guru and started, I can teach transcendental meditation despite the fact that I'm a massive coke fiend.
All I'm saying, get somebody else than Brian to write the lyrics.
The only thing I want Mike Love to write is a suicide note.
I know there's a lot of Mike Love haters, but I'm going to give Mike some props because he and Carl on this record sound great. Brian sounds horrible. Dennis is barely there. He's better than Brian. Brian shouldn't be singing on this at all. I know, it's going to piss you off.
No, this is great. This is great. It's better than everybody just saying the same thing.
Right. I like the idea that they're pushing Brian right out there. They're trying to sell some records, kids. Get him out there on tour, even though he doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
And I think side one, Mona's great. I think Good Time's great. At least Brian sounds like Brian on that. Ding Dang's fun. It's not anything, though. It's side two where the record takes off because a lot of these tracks are Pet Sounds quality, except they don't have Pet Sounds Productions, but they do have that stylistic Pet Sounds type of songwriting. I bet he's nice. Let's put our hearts together. If you put that back in 1966 and freaking put Brian on it back then when he could sing, beautiful. I Want to Pick You Up's great. The Night Was So Young was great. Side two is where shit starts to happen. Do I dig the synthesizer production? No, I think it's just a bunch of hoo-ha. But I can listen past it. You know? I want what Brian used to do. Or at least what he used to do, like in Friends, or at least 2020, that stuff. I mean, these sound like demos to me, which is fine. And I like this better than nothing. But this sounds like a good follow-up to Smiley Smile to me. It's more that Smiley Smile stuff. We get on the organ or we get on the keyboard and we just bang some stuff out, which is fine. You know, what did Carl say about Smiley Smile? It was a bunt instead of a grand slam. Had they put out Smile, who knows what that would have done to music? Who knows what that would have done? Had that came out prior to Pepper, we might be in a different world today. Just saying. Smile, if you can get the Smile box set or any of the Smile bootlegs, holy crap. Absolutely brilliant. But, you know, it is what it is. It never officially came out. But this is fine. This is what I call Smiley Smile Part 2. It's fine, but it's just not what came before. The brilliance of Pet Sounds, Beach Boys Today, Summer Days, Summer Nights, hell, Sunflower. Pfft, this is pale in comparison to Sunflower. I mean, Dennis Wilson Forever, standing by itself, is better than anything that's on here. But it's fine to see Brian back out. I got it. Push Brian back out so we can sell some more records. That's how I look at this record. But it's fine for what it is. I would give it 3 out of 5, maybe a 6 out of 10, maybe. I don't know. I don't dislike it, but people that, no offense, but you think this, I don't think it's as brilliant as what came before by any means. This is the Beach Boys trying to push Brian out there to make some money. That's the way I look at it.
Well, I'd say that this was the Beach Boys trying to push Brian out to make some money.
That's where it started.
But this is them very much just doing the safe crap Beach Boys. You know, I mean...
Well, the thing is, by this time, Davey, they didn't know if they were coming or going. We're lucky they even put out anything during this time period. They weren't selling shit.
No, but they're still very prolific. So, I mean, but I don't need to hear them doing, just let me hear some of the rock and roll music.
Yeah, but that was a big hit. I'll give it that.
Yeah, that put money in their bank accounts. Doesn't help me appreciate it anymore. You know what I mean?
I think that stuff's boring.
Yeah, like if I want to hear rock and roll music, I'm going to.
Well, that's a Mike Love thing. That's what you're hearing there.
Well, exactly, because he's got no ambition. And yeah, I get the whole point that they made more money with this, or this was more successful. But it doesn't make me any richer. What makes me richer is enjoying the albums that I like, and believe me, I will listen to this any day over that.
Me too.
Well, I will too, but I'll listen to Pet Sounds and Smile and Summer Days and all summer long before I'll even pull out Love You.
Well, we both said that it would be our number 3. We never said it was their absolute top notch. Plus, I'm also coming at it at a point of view of an appreciator of Brian Wilson, which is why I compared a lot of it to Brian's works, not the Beach Boys' works, because I think you can draw a straight line from this to the self-titled 1988, to, again, the Lucky Old Son album. You can see little parts of all these kind of reggae, even Orange Cray Art. There's some weird kind of Baroque stuff in that's very much kind of like this. So for me, as much as I love the Beach Boys, this to me is This to me is Brian Wilson's first solo album. Despite the fact that it came out as a Beach Boys record, but this is Brian's solo debut.
Well, that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, that's what he wanted it to be, but then realised that this is a Carl song, this is a Benny song, so they'd be on it anyway, so I might as well put it out as the Beach Boys, plus he was worried that it would break up the band. But yeah, this is just, to me, stage one of Brian's solo career that continues to this day, and absolutely love it to bits. Brian's not put out a bad solo record for me.
I also have to suggest one thing. I mean, and this isn't the album we're talking about, but you made a point about Smiley Smile and how they said it was only a bunt, not a home run.
That's what Carl said.
Yeah, I think that's bullshit, honestly. I have to be completely honest with that, because what else was coming out in 1967 that sounded like Smiley Smile? I mean, that album's 10 times weirder than Sgt. Pepper is.
Plus, Carl knew what Smile was going to be, so he was also comparing it to that. So,
which would have been a grand slam.
So
even so, I mean, what they put out in '67 on Smiley Smile was groundbreaking.
Yeah, but you can't compare that to Pepper by any means, or Who's Sellout, or.
I mean,
I like it more than both of those records.
I like it more than Sellout. I don't know about maybe. Again, Smile, I've got the Carl Wilson problem, like we were saying there. Smiley Smile, I always just hear, I wish this was Smile instead. But it's got good vibrations on it. It's got heroes and villains on it, albeit the version without the in the cantina, Margaret, which is to me the best version of Heroes and Villains, the full version.
It's got vegetables.
It's got vegetables with Paul McCartney, as I informed you recently, and I was disbelieved.
Yeah.
People thought I was lying.
Is he on the Smiley Smile version or the
Yes.
Smile version?
On the Smelly Smell version.
Yeah. It's got wind chimes on it. It's such a weird.
Yeah, but
record.
the wind chimes it's on Smile's way better.
Yeah.
And Wonderful is like light years ahead of what's on Smiley Smile.
That's the problem we've got as fans, though, is that we know the buried treasure. I think Ryan's right. If you just listen to Smile, Smile, that's a phenomenal record. If you
It
don't
is.
say as opposed to Smile, if you can somehow block it out of your mind, which again it's hard to do when you know it so well. And Grant, you and I are both massive fans of Smile, and Ryan, I know you love your Smile.
I love Smile too.
Yeah, I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying you are a big fan of Smiley. So it's hard for us to hear it without going, oh, why is it not this version? Why is it not that version? But,
Well, I don't understand why. I guess I just don't understand why they. I don't know why they didn't just finish it up and just put something out. Unless Brian was that adamant about it to scrap it. I don't know. Because you had Mike Love bitching about over and over the crow flies over the cornfield, and then hell, you're still putting out Smile stuff on Smiley Smile.
Well, the one that Mike really hated was Sunny Down Snuff from Hero. You know, that was his famous one. What's all this Sunny Down Snuff about? And it's heroes and villains, for God's sake. What's Mike ever written that's anything as good as heroes and villains, for God's sake? Nonsense.
Well, he can't compete with Van Dyke Parks. I'll give him that.
Yeah, but that's Mike's problem, is that he was always the guy at the side of the room saying this isn't good enough without having a better idea. And it's part of the reason why Mike Love has the reputation that Mike Love has. He's prepared to criticize, but not to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you can't be...
I'm just surprised after all the bitching and all the infighting from Smile. Of course, if you listen to the sessions, the Beach Boys are doing what Brian wants him to do. I don't hear anybody bitching. I don't hear Mike Love bitching about anything.
No.
Everybody's doing their vocal parts and just having a great old time in the studio. So maybe this is a lot of folklore, a lot of bullshit they're trying to push. I don't know. I wasn't there.
I mean, they mock it on the what's the track where you actually hear Mike starts making fun of Sunny Down Snuff and Brian starts laughing with them. Because it's on one of the bonus tracks. It's definitely on this. It's definitely on that big box set version.
It might be on the Unsurpassed Masters too. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Definitely on that. But to me, it's a missed opportunity that Smell never came out. But what they did to salvage it, I don't think that's a bad attempt at all. To come out with Smiley Smile, and I like some of the newer stuff that's on Smiley Smile.
Yeah.
I think I did to Ryan recently. I really like Little Pad. I think that's such a really weird little tune.
I do like Little Pad though. That is
and that's a
great.
new one. You're right. What they did was take Smile, and then despite the fact that they all had reservations about it because they knew that it kind of ruined their reputation as pioneers, and I think that's part of it, by the way. I think that they resented the fact that they'd been lapped by the Beatles in the public's eye. So maybe it wasn't the music itself, it was the fact that it collapsed that really annoyed Mike, for example. Sorry, you going to...
No, but don't forget about this. Smile was so late.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, you have Capitol beating on their door for product.
Yeah.
So they had to scramble to do something because Capitol was freaking losing their shit.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because following Pet Sounds, which again was
a failure.
A failure commercially, which seemed so bizarre to us.
But it didn't really sell that bad. What did it get, like to number 16 on the U.S. charts? It sold way better in the U.K. I know that.
Oh, it was a massive hit here, but it was supposed to be number one. That was the whole point. They were supposed to be, you know, the Beach Boys had been number one, number two, number three. They'd never been 16. You know, Surfing Safari did better than that kind of stuff. So for Pet Sounds, for all the money that was put into Pet Sounds as well, to not do well was it took away the equity that Brian had to be able to spend 2 years making an album. Whereas when Paul McCartney or John Lennon or whoever would have said, we're going to take more time, EMI would have been able to, they wouldn't have been able to say no to the Beatles. But the failure, relatively so, of Pet Sounds meant that Brian didn't have that luxury. So he did have the suits beating down the door. He did have the pressures from Mike to, oh, right, you need to write another hit. We need another.
Another hit.
Whereas Brian wasn't at that point interested in hits. I'm not sure he cared about what was going on in terms of hits. He just heard the sounds, so he was obsessed with what Paul McCartney was, especially Paul McCartney, and what Phil Spector had done, and that was his competition, not what chart placements they got to the charts, but his competition was just the sound and how he could take it to the next level. And that's where Smile would have taken it.
But by the time that the Beatles put out Pepper, we're done there. No more competition.
Yeah. But if you have Smile before it, and that's a big if,
would have been different.
But would it have been another Pet Sounds where, it took a few years, but then it caught on and people went, bloody hell, that's great.
We'll never know.
But I mean, at least Pet Sounds had some singles they could take from it and really commercially cash it. But they never had that for Smile, really. I mean, Heroes and Villains and an edit would have been okay, but there was...
That's the only single that I even hear of it.
There's no real... you can't cut down most of Smile. But Beach Boys Love You, there are so many strange songs on here. Do you hear any singles that could have possibly been a hit on this?
No.
Neither do I. But it doesn't affect my enjoyment one slight.
Well, I'm not looking for singles, though. I'm just looking for quality product.
You were saying in terms of having a hit, that's what they needed, was a hit or a hit album.
Well, they needed something because they weren't selling any records at all. So
I don't see that any of this could have been a commercial success in the singles charts. I don't see that the album would have been a particularly easy sell anyway. And I hate to say this because I'm about to give Mike Love some credit. Mike's probably got the right idea that a lot of, and we'll use this term even though I think it's overused, boomers really want to hear surfing, girls, cars. That's what they want from the Beach Boys. And that's why the set list to this day, if you go see Mike Love with his baseball cap trying to hide the baldness, is just the same set list that they were playing in 1966. With a couple, maybe Kokomo added.
Yeah, so he was kind of right on everything.
It was, well, right from a possibly commercial point of view, but then what did they do after this commercial when Mike did take charge? Kokomo, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I think that there really isn't anything that could have been a single on here. Closest to a single maybe be a couple of the ballads or maybe Boner. But it really just wouldn't work as a single. Yeah. But I think that's kind of what I like about this album too, is that it was just doing what they wanted to do on it.
Yeah. Or what he wanted.
It feels like a Beach Boys album.
Yeah, what he wanted to do.
And I love it. I mean, that's fantastic because, I mean, Brian really is a lot of the time the heart and soul of the Beach Boys for me. Him and Dennis and Carl, but I mean, Brian was the vision of that band, and so I'm okay with that. And I think that he did a really good thing here. And if it is a really good follow-up to Smiley's Smile, I think that's saying something good about it. Because Smiley's Smile.
Believe me, I'm just trying to look at this from a certain point of view. I like this record.
Oh no,
but I also like what came before a lot better. I think this is a okay record. I don't think it's anything. I think this is just Brian just dinking around, just coming up with songs. I mean, it's not like he was out to change the world like he was trying to change the world with Pepper or Smile or anything, He was on fire then.
Yeah, but you can say the same about most artists. I mean, how many people... I mean, look at the Stones by this stage in 77. They were just regurgitating the same riffs.
Yeah, they were. The Stones died in 1973. But by this point, they were just a business unit. That's all they were.
I mean, we didn't go into that, but when Mick Taylor leaves, I check out. But yeah, there's an expectation because they stayed together that they should have kept up the quality, whereas the Beatles had the luxury of getting out when the getting was good.
They went out on top.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So they leave in 1970. If the Beatles were still together in 77, 80, 83, maybe we'd be sitting here going, oh my God, I can't believe that crap that the Beatles were making. You know, the Frog Chorus,
Exactly.
and, Ebony and Ivory, and, you know, would we be saying that?
No, it would have. The history would have been rewritten.
So
We wouldn't be saying the same thing.
I mean,
If the Stones would have quit in like if they quit in 1971, 72, we'd be saying something way different about the Stones than we'd say now.
But with Brian,
I don't know. I think we would miss so much great Stones content.
There's not that much great Stone stuff.
I disagree, but I mean, some of my favorite stuff is late 70s Stones, honestly. Like, I really dig that stuff.
I'm kind of with David on this. When Mick Taylor left, that was like pretty much when things changed. That's when they became a business.
Well, I will admit that's blues rock is my jam. So Mick Taylor obviously was from the Blues Breakers. So, you know, that's always going to be more my scene than Ronnie Wood, you know, from the Faces kind of scene. You know, that party sounds not quite as appealing to me as Mick Taylor's skills. But we're not doing a Stone show tonight. But
no, we're not.
But to combat, I mean, are you guys fans of Brian's solo works after this? The album, you know, 88.
I like the 1989 album. All right.
88, yeah.
I mean 88.
I think
the Sire album.
This is just a direct prequel to that, really. Yeah, I mean, it just sounds.
Yeah, but I think it's a better record than this.
I don't know. I think a lot of similarities here, including the love of synths that Brian carries over to that. You know, I mean, I end every video that I make with my sign off being "Love and Mercy" because of the track from the opening track from that album. I just adore it. And then that great album that he made, that kind of semi-live one, I just wasn't made for these times. We did more stripped-back versions of those tracks, just absolutely breathtaking, and some Beach Boys classics as well. Caroline No. You know, Brian he's still got it, and he's always had it. It just comes out in these odd little bursts, and this is where you get the oddness to starting. And it continues right through, as I've mentioned 4 or 5 times. The Lucky Old Son, I think, is his best solo work because it's got that quirkiness, that oddness, and it's full of these strange little songs that you can really see starting here. You know, it's got I got a notion we come from the ocean. You know, this bizarre song. That's Solar System. You know, I mean, these odd little quirky tracks that you would never have gotten if it was still the Beach Boys as an entity, as we saw when the Beach Boys did.
Just think Brian works better if he has a collaborator.
Which he
needs someone to write but I know he needs to have someone write lyrics. He's not a lyric.
Van Dyke did the lyrics on Lucky Old Son. Van Dyke did all the lyrics on that. Mm-hmm. But as we saw when the Beach Boys did the reunion album, that's why God made the radio. When you try and, you know, literally get the band back together, it doesn't quite work, you know, because they were all kind of, what is it we used to do together again? And the idea that Mike fired Brian Wilson again and fired Al Jardin again is just an insult to me. And that's Mike firing those two. Jeez.
I don't know.
I don't even know how he gets that authority.
But he was the one that stayed the course, so he had the rights to do so. Yeah,
I guess. Didn't Brian license the Beach Boys name to Mike Love?
Yeah, and Brian left officially. But you're right, Brian was still there until Stars and Stripes Volume 1, so he was on every solo album, every Beach Boys album.
Technically, yeah.
But, you know, it was never part of the touring setup from what I think he did 76, but he did not want to be there. He did 77, did not want to be there. He did 82, I want to say. Again, did not want to be there because he's on the big show at the Castle in England. Yeah. Which is a good concert, but it's, you know, Brian's just so. I mean, he's practically off stage. He's so not wanting to be there.
We're not even sure if his keyboards are on. You never know if he's really playing or not.
And you're not sure about the harmonies and things because his voice was so different by that point. But again, I'm such a fan of his solo works that I'm used to Brian's voice. I know you said you had an issue with his voice on this album.
Well, I mean, it cleaned up later on, but man, this is when he was smoking cartons of cigarettes, so it wasn't all
I still
that.
think you can hear relatively modern Brian on this. I think this is the birth of that voice. I mean, obviously the track from 1970, he sounds like 1970 Brian. But,
Sounds like Brian, yeah.
But this is just step one in Brian Wilson having a very slow burn solo career that would take 10 years to really go, and then another 4 years to get, Dr. Landy at the picture and have proper control over. But it's been a wonderful adventure.
All right. Well, there you go. I feel like I'm the outsider here, but that's okay. It's more fun that way.
Definitely.
I mean, I like this record. I just don't love it.
That's fair.
So, Davey, what do you have coming up? Plug some stuff. Come on.
Well, I've got so much to plug, man. I mean, okay. Next Thursday, Monsters Den will be in there on Sea of Tranquility, which will be. Pete hasn't announced the actual topic, so I won't do so, but I'll just say it's an absolute epic of massive epicness.
Well, you're on it, so it has to be good.
Well, yeah. I mean, the others will turn up, but good luck to them. Then shortly after that, again, Pete's not officially announced who or what the thing is, so I won't spoil that. But I'm going to be doing a homework assignment episode on SLT, probably recording next week. And then we've got Curse of the Collector probably in the next week or two. Doing my own videos still on Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. In July, I'm going to start doing collaborative videos. I said I wanted to hit 300 before I started doing videos with other people because I wanted people to know me before I started doing videos with other people because you might have noticed some people can find me a little bit abrasive and,
Really?
Sweary and, So, for every subscriber I pick up, I lose 3. It's not a very good model. No, I think it's the other way around, actually. But Brian will be on there. You're going to be on there.
Woohoo!
Who else was announced? Barack Obama. I think we announced him.
Nice. Holy crap, I hit 100 subscribers.
And Ryan had 200 today.
Yep.
So
I'm going to have to make a video now.
Yeah. Do one together.
Ryan, we should do a video together celebrating our 100 and 200.
Okay.
Put them together and you've got 300. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
If we put all ours together, we'll get 600. So,
How many do you have, Davey?
314.
Nice. And how long have you been doing this?
5-6 months.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's all me, so there's nobody else's personality here. But there's barely even any of my personality. But no, we're going to be doing more videos collaborative wise on my channel. So
cool.
Ryan's going to be on. We're going to be talking. We're going to be talking Prince. We're also going to be talking Prince on Ryan's channel. We're going to be talking interview series, which Grant, you've already been invited on. I'm going to be having a glut of personalities on that.
I keep waiting for that, but I still haven't got that invite.
Nobody's had an invite from that. So nobody's had. Just I need to work on my question.
Hey man, I'm anxious.
It's okay, I'm lazy.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, it's not quite Frost Nixon, but you're in for a grilling.
Could be though. It could be.
Apart from that, most of my other videos are with you fine gents, so I'm not going to plug them for you, apart from to say they're absolutely brilliant, and you fully deserve your 100 and 200 subscribers.
Yeah, Ryan and I together have almost as many as you.
Well,
almost.
You have to remember, though, I appeal to the psychopaths and nutcases, so there's a
Gotcha.
lot of them out there. So, you appeal to the nice folk. There's one born every
I got
minute,
it.
and I've got
I understand.
314 of them. So, Ryan, plug yourself.
Yeah, Ryan, this might take a while. You might want to get a drink because Ryan's really good at plugging stuff.
Oh.
So what's coming up?
All right. So got a ton of stuff coming up. First of all, tomorrow I got 2 videos on my channel, Ryan's Final Destination. At 6 p.m. Eastern, Davy and Tyler and I will be talking about our recent vinyl finds. It'll be the 3rd episode in that series. Second one with Davy. And then also tomorrow...
The second one, really.
What's up?
So the second one, really. The first one doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically. So also tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing our second episode of the U2 series.
Is it 9 or 8:30?
9. We'll probably get on to the StreamYard at 8:30 so we can chat.
Because I got 8:30 written down. But that's okay. 8:30.
Come on at 8:30 and then we'll start streaming at 9. I figure that will work out perfect.
I'll be there at 8:30.
Cool. We'll be talking about War and the Unforgettable Fire. That's going to be a really fun episode.
That's going to be a great episode.
Yeah, and both of those episodes are going to be live streams. I mean, everything I'm doing from now on is live streams because I'm lazy and I don't like to upload stuff.
Yeah, I hear you.
You can always come participate with me on my live streams whenever they're happening. So that was 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. tomorrow with those episodes. Definitely come check them out and comment. July 1st, I have an Iron Maiden video on the channel. We just had one a couple weeks back where we talked about our best of compilations, which is a new recurring series on the channel. But on July 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be talking about our dream set list by the band. Let's see here. And that's going to feature a big cast of characters like Ryan Murphy from Rush fans, Todd Evans, John Clauser, and then some of Ryan Murphy's friends as well. So that's going to be a really fun episode. I know July 2nd, we're doing an episode on John's channel, My Music Corner, where we're going to be talking about Iron Maiden as well, our top 5 opening tracks by the band. So check that out as well. But also on July 5th, Davy, Armando, and I are going to be talking about Prince. We're going to do our best of compilations of his catalog. So that'll be 5 songs each. We'll make a 15-song compilation. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern on July 5th. July 9th, I'm going to have a cassette chat with Todd Evans. We're going to talk about some of our recent finds. And also, I'm going to interview him on some stuff about cassettes because he's been collecting longer than I have. So just some things on general upkeep and other stuff as well.
Todd's a few years older.
Huh?
Todd's a few years older, so he's had time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he's what, 27, 28?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But let's see here. Also, on
that was for you, Todd. You'll like that.
July 13th at 7 p.m., we're going to be doing the Judas Priest Best of compilation. That's going to feature a big cast of characters, including Davy, Jack Toledano, John Clauser, John the Music Nut, Todd, and then I think there might be someone else on there. I have to double check that. But that's July 13th at 7 p.m. Let's see, July 18th at 8 p.m., Marco from the Contrarians and I are going to be showing off our Jimi Hendrix collections in our from that we own. So that'll be 8 p.m. on July 18th. And then also there's going to be other best of compilations in the future. I haven't set dates exactly yet, but some of the top bands that are going to get mentioned are Scorpions, UFO, Metallica, Slayer, David Bowie, Thin Lizzy, Alice in Chains, Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, and Alice Cooper. So come check out my damn channel because we got everything there. And I also have a Facebook and Instagram as well, where I do written reviews, reels. I share my Sea of Tranquility reviews, etc.
Today that was good. I liked that one.
Oh, thank you. And also check me out on Patreon as well. Ryan's Final Destination. You know, I'm all over the place. And
he's all over the place.
Yeah. You can find me on Greek Rock Warehouse, Contrarians, Davy Cinema Flicks and Music Picks, Rock Daydream Nation, Rock Fantasy, My Music Corner, etc. You can find me everywhere. So come check me out and come check out those great channels along with a ton of others. If you watch any of my videos, you will see a whole list of channels to come check out. I'm not naming them all now because we're going pretty long. But go check it out.
We're almost an hour and a half.
Hey, it's good stuff.
All right. Excellent, Ryan. I appreciate your Mr. Marketing is what he is.
Thank you.
All right. Tomorrow I got Obscure Albums 3 at 7 p.m. and then we've got U2 at 9 o'clock. On the 30th, I got The Doors, where we're going through the Doors catalog, the Jim Morrison catalog. That'll be with, that's going to be with Reed Little and Todd Evans. We're picking 2 tracks from each Morrison record. Then we got Cheap Trick with Ryan and I at 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday's a double whammy. So that'll be good. Friday is another Friday night chat at 7 p.m. And the topic for that, and who knows who's going to show up. I have no idea. It might just be me. We're going to talk about those records that changed your life when you first heard them. So that might be fun. And of course, it's going to derail and go off into some kind of tangent. That's how it always works.
Well, I do my best.
On Thursday the 9th, there's another Cheapy Bin episode that I'm doing with Nick Squire. They Might Be Giants is on the 14th. And then on the 15th, another Friday night chat. I don't know what the topic is. No idea. Kiss on the 18th of July, we're doing a talk about Kiss on the soundboard recordings, where we're going to look all 3 of the Kiss soundboard recordings, talk about that. The next April Wine episode is April 19th. July 19th. And we'll look at Animal Grace and Walking Through Fire. That ought to be really interesting. Mm-hmm. Guadalcanal Diary with Todd Evans on the 20th. And then on the 21st, Todd and I are doing another Matthew Sweet. I think that's it. There's probably more shit, but God knows. That's plenty. That's plenty.
I know. You don't even pay for this, you selfish bastards. Subscribe to us all and tell your friends.
Right. Subscribe. I want to get to at least 105 this week. I did get to 100, though. That's good.
No, it is. Every milestone is... I mean, every subscriber is great. But the milestones... I don't know about you guys, but I'm always like, I don't really care about number. You know, as long as the people that are watching enjoy it. But you do have that when you're sitting at like 199, you want the 200. You know, it's just in your, silly psyche. But yeah, as long as everybody that watches gets something from it, and hopefully one day somebody will get something from one of mine.
I did get someone that subscribed that said, "Hey, I'm subscribing from the Contrarians." I haven't had that before. I
got that too.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a few.
That was the first one that I got that said that.
Was his name Howard?
I don't know. I'd have to.
No. It's let's see here.
Well, he's going to unsubscribe when he sees how memorable he is.
Coleman 76.
Well, now I can't find it. What did you say it was?
Coleman 76.
Coleman, what have I done to you, buddy? Is there a problem here, Coleman? I mean, I can just...
Haven't you subscribed to Davy's channel, Coleman? Come on, man.
I mean,
we're all in this together.
I'll change my content for you, Coleman. Just pop a comment in my videos, and I'll do. In fact, any video you want me to do, Coleman, you get a free video. Any video.
See, there you go. All right, well, we're going to tie this one up, boys. I appreciate each one of you, and I appreciate your thoughts on this record. What a great discussion. I want to thank Davy, and I want to thank Ryan. You guys are the best. And please subscribe to their channels, check them out. But subscribe to my channel first, then go to their channels.
Yeah, it needs the help.
I need all the help I can.
You dig me, I'm going to dig you back further.
So next time, okay, I need you guys to stay on when we quit recording because I want to set up the day we're going to look at Beach Boys' Sunflower. All right, so good night. So stay tuned. That'll be the next in the Beach Boys series, folks. So good night. We'll talk to you guys later.
Night night.